Welcome to Movie Roundup today. I'm going to explain a drama movie. Warlike Call Unbreakable. During the Second World War, a American bomber squadron fly over the Pacific Ocean with a mission to bombard a major island. Japanese when approaching the target. Bomber Louis Samper in and drops the bombs on the island, but soon the Japanese counterattack with powerful missiles and fighters. Several soldiers die, but fortunately the gunners manage shoot down enemy fighters and escape from area. Phil the bomber pilot notices that the aircraft has critical damage, product of the Japanese attack, so decide to return to the air base. Landing emergency. Phil notices that the braking system is failing, but also manages to stop the plane with success. The film takes us to the past, in where we see little Louis drinking alcohol in a small town in California during a competition. Athletics. Louis is discovered drinking alcohol under the bleachers, so it comes out running to avoid trouble. His brother sees him escape, and that's when he discovers that little Louis is very fast, so he starts training him. Several years go by and Louis gets join the track team school, where he stands out for being the swifter. The youth is summoned to participate in the Olympics. International athletics, where manages to be first but scores a new American record time. Back in the present, soldiers spend their days at the airbase, where Louis wastes no time and continues training in the hope of reaching be one of the best in the world. Soon a jeep with several of its companions approaches to inform him of their new mission. They must search and rescue the crew of another bomber they think crashed in mid-ocean. Airborne pilots. They complain about the appalling conditions in which the aircraft is, while the others look for traces of the survivors using binoculars. Suddenly two of the plane's engines fail catastrophically, causing the aircraft crashes in the middle of the ocean. In the water, the fuselage splits in two and quickly begins to sink. Louis manages to swim away in time to the surface to be able to breathe in, where we see that only 3 of the 11 crew members have managed to stay alive. The 3 survivors, Luis, Film and a crew member named Max, say quickly climb into the rafts. Aircraft emergency, where ration food and drinking water so that they last longer. On the third day, all 3 wake up to the sound from a plane in the sky. They scream and shoot some flares so that the sea, but the plane passes by without finding them. The situation is complicated, even more so when they run out food reservations. Desperate, Louis grabs a man by the leg, albatross, that had stopped on the raft, and try to eat it, but quickly vomits. All 3 think of ways to get food, and that's when Phil comes up with the idea of improvising a hook, using the bird they caught as bait, which gives them a source of healthy and nutritious food. More days go by and soon they are over drinking water from their bottles, so they begin to dehydrate. Then a huge storm shakes the sea, generating huge waves, so Luis asks God to help them get out of this, and everybody hold on tight to the raft. The wind and the waves calm down, and soon it starts to rain. That the boys open their mouths trying hydrate and take the opportunity to fill their bottles when the bait to fish they run out. Louis catches by the tail a small shark that was surrounding, and they get on the raft. The boy kills him by stabbing him with a knife, and quickly the 3 begin to eat of its meat. After 28 days in the ocean, another plane flies above them, and Louis launches a flare with the hope they see them. The aircraft starts to turn around and the boys. They can't believe they're finally going to be rescued, but the plane is coming quickly and starts shooting at them. They jump into the water to protect themselves from the shots, but soon they rise again to escape the sharks. The plane turns around and Louis jumps. Again Mac and Phil stay in the raft, and when Louis gets back up, he thinks they are dead, but amazingly both survive. The aircraft leaves and they begin to plug the holes in the raft while Phil reinflates to stay afloat. Several days go by and Mac dies dehydrated in the raft, so his companions cover his face and young people are released into the sea. They no longer have strength to continue, but luckily, after 47 days in the middle of the ocean, they wake up and notice that a ship found them. The problem is that the ship is Japanese and they capture them and they hold Louis and Phil's son prisoner, taken to a prison camp where Japanese soldiers. They interrogate and mistreat them constantly. Later all prisoners are taken to a camp detention in Tokyo, and when the Cape arrives, Drop Navi is featured. The man tells them that they are all enemies of Japan and they will be treated as such, but joo-hwan is like Louis Low. He watches as he speaks, so he approaches and asks her to look at him. When he does, the corporal breaks his face with a cane. Louis stands up and looks at him again, so the corporal hits him again. Finally the corporal whispers that never more. He looks at it and then leaves. When the night the prisoners go to bed and at tomorrow they vote, Aviles says that there is a lot of talent in this field. Detention. The corporal appoints an opera singer to a renowned chef and then asks inmates about who is the Olympic athlete. Louis raises his hand indicating that he is the Ivo, so skillful or puts to run against a young Japanese. Louis is very weak and malnourished, so that in the middle of the race breaks down and falls to the ground. Watanabe and tells him that he is a loser and he is hit hard by the Japanese. Keep prisoners of war in deplorable conditions under beatings and constant abuse. They even force them to do jobs forced and to clean up their own latrines. One night the soldiers raise Louis and they hit him. They take him with Drop Navi, where the corporal tells him that being an Olympic athlete he is a person important to the US, so he should go to the radio to communicate with your family saying that he is alive and that treat well. Louis accepts and his family listens to him for the radio as well as thousands of other Americans. As a reward, Japanese take him to eat at a restaurant, but soon two subjects come over and ask him to make another announcement, communicating that he is a traitor and that he will stay for the rest of his life in Japan. Louis says he can't do that, so that he is brought back to the center of detention. Votes Navi recognizes him for being a strong man, but since he did not that was asked, the man commands the more than 100 prisoners who pass one by one to punch him in the face. Louis takes all the blows, rising each time to receive the next punch. The prisoners organize a Cinderella play where some inmates perform and others watch, having fun for the first time since they are in prison. Watanabe approaches Louis saying that have promoted, so you will have to go to another field. Louis is happy and Watanabe and asks him to. I congratulated him, but the boy stays silent. After a short time they vote for this. He leaves, but the happiness of the prisoners short-lived, as the Allies soon bomb a nearby town and inmates are taken to a new camp of detention. When the Japanese arrived, they line up the prisoners and Louis almost faints when he sees that the officer at Command of that field was Watanabe. Without time to waste, the inmates are forced to do forced labor, carrying heavy baskets of charcoal. Some stairs while they are constantly mistreated. Some prisoners give in to pressure, and everything takes a turn for the worse when some days later they vote to visit approaching inmates to inform them that their President Franklin Roosevelt has deceased. With this news and not being able to communicate with the outside, they think they are losing the war, and one of the inmates starts to cry. One day dropship separates Louis from his companions and orders him to raise a heavy wooden beam. The man tells him, let him keep her above his shoulders, authorizing the guards to shoot him if he falls or lowers his arms. All his companions stay watching Louis, admiring him for his incredible strength and determination despite to be very malnourished. Watanabe and can't believe, like man, he is able to withstand so much punishment for what approaches, and grinds it to blows with the cane of him. Once again the young man remains unconscious for several hours, and next morning a Japanese officer orders the prisoners to bathe in the Kura River. They believe that the Japanese they are taking them to the river to execute them, but when they enter the water, an Allied plane flies over them. Is here when we find out that the Japanese had surrendered and the war, the prisoners had come to an end. Receive several packages with food and supplies, and Louis takes advantage to tour the facilities. In Watanabe Louis' bathroom decompensates when seeing a photo of the young man Watanabe with his father, one of whom commissioned to raise his son to become the horrible tyrant that he is. Louis returns to the USA and meets again with his family after several years of battles and seclusion. At the end of the film, the credits reveal that Louis managed to overcome the stress that he left the war, managing to get married and having 2 children. He also survived and Watanabe and remained hidden by his war crimes until the U.S. removed the charges of him to ensure a good relationship with Japan. Louis swears it was God who saved him life, so he came back to Japan to forgive the former captors of him, and only Watanabe refused to meet him. At 1998 and 80 years old, Louis finally fulfilled his dream of returning to run in the Olympics that coincidentally the film was held in Japan. Ends by revealing that Louis Samperini he passed away in 2014 at the age of 97. Remember to leave your like, that helps a lot to the channel. Subscribe and activate the notifications to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and until next time.